Hey, welcome back to the Irth Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Adams. Today we're being joined by one of my favorite people in the world. I've known this person for over 20 years. We've done everything from be competitors to build companies together, and now we're currently co-workers at Irth Solutions. I'm very, very happy to bring Jeff Law, the GM or General Manager of Damage Prevention for Irth Solutions, onto the podcast today. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you very much.
So, Jeff, you've been in this industry for absolutely forever. You've been in it as long as I have been. I think we're some of the true remaining dinosaurs of this place. Kind of tell us how you got into damage prevention and what's your story, basically.
Sure. Yeah, we're definitely dinosaurs, Jay. I like to believe that I look a lot less aged than you do, but that's a whole nother thing. I actually started in this industry as a developer. I used to write code, believe it or not. I like to believe that wrote code so well that they promoted me out of writing code. Um, but yeah, so we had I worked for a company called Vertical Systems, and we had a project for Mini Gasco here in Minneapolis. And as part of that project, I got exposed to the damage prevention industry. And Mini Gasco spun off a for-profit company called NORAM Damage Prevention, which is a contract locator. And we at that point then developed a ticket management system for them. And when NORAM got sold off to Houston Industries, the rights to the software then reverted back to Vertical Systems. And at that point, we took the product out to market, and I was put in place as a product manager. So that's kind of what kickstarted my career. Granted, that was kind of a 2 to 3 year lifespan, but that's what.
And that was like in the early 60s. Is that what I recall?
Very good. Yeah, that was late 90s, mid to late 90s, 96, 95, 96, somewhere in there is kind of where I got exposed. So, and
eventually, if I'm not mistaken, Vertical Systems became Korterra.
That is correct. Yep. And yeah, as the evolution goes, Korterra spun off from Vertical Systems, the ticket management portion. Vertical Systems was a custom development shop, right? And so they spun off this product called Korterra back in roughly 2002, 2003 timeframe. And then from there, it just continued to grow. And we rewrote the software on several occasions, learning each time on how to make things better for the industry. So from there, left after about 24 years with Korterra, left there and joined 4IQ, joined my good friend here on the podcast, Mr. Jason Adams, who, obviously we've known each other for a long time and cross paths many times, usually at a sales demo of some type where either I'd be walking out and Jay walking in or vice versa. And so we'd always cross paths that way and had this mutual respect for each other. And it's been absolutely great. From there, 4IQ was just recently in the last couple of years here, acquired by Irth Solutions. And that's what brought me to the final stage here and be general manager of damage prevention on the Irth side. So it's a little awkward and weird a little bit at first, wearing an Irth jersey, as I like to say, after competing against Irth for so many years. But now that I'm inside the walls, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Great. I would say, yeah, your career is the one thing that you've shown is flexibility, right? Because from everything from doing coding to then becoming part of a sales process, even at 4IQ, you played many roles, even the president role of leading the organization moving forward before you got acquired by Irth. So I would have to guess, like myself, it's been different wearing a different shirt a couple times. I've only had the pleasure of wearing 2 in this race, and you've had 3. So,
right.
But I think
Yeah,
relatively
it's
speaking, the path that you've walked on in your career has given you great insight into damage prevention. I mean,
Mhm.
you have sat, if I'm not mistaken, you've sat on multiple boards that have been industry leaders. You've sat on technology committees. You really played a role in shaping what damage prevention looks like over the last 30 years. So it's interesting you bring all those talents to Earth, where now you're working at a much greater scale, larger scale, a lot more clients, a lot of larger clients. So now, as you kind of make your way into damage prevention, you tell me, what are the biggest challenges facing damage prevention clients today? And what are you doing and your team doing to kind of address some of those concerns?
well, I mean, I think with anything in this industry, it seems like adoption of change is one of the biggest challenges, right? I mean, when something new comes out, this industry tends to lag behind a bit in regards to adopting that new technology. Um, so I think when you have a good idea, when you have something that actually can make a change and make an impact, um, getting folks educated on how that impact can affect their job, how that impact could improve things for them, how it can save lives. I mean, in all honesty, I mean that's what we're doing this, right? Is to make people feel safe, or make people safe in the industry or in the field. And I think the biggest challenge is getting those tools in the hands of those that are out there, and be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, when I started at Earth forever ago, and we would cross paths when we were competitors in places, it was pretty easy to kind of identify the advantages of what I felt our platform was versus the competition that was in the market. I always felt that we led in areas like our GIS and some of our screening and some of those things, but everybody catches up fairly quickly. That's kind of the role of tech that we see. It's interesting now as we engage in new things. I think you and I have started to see new opportunity and technology where it was kind of stale for a little while. We were really only getting better at the same thing over and over and over. And now we're actually exploring new opportunities. So that kind of segues into a conversation that I have with a lot of the people on the podcast is, let's talk about data. And let's talk about AI, right? And I think
Right.
I'm a sucker for these things. I love these things. I've watched your joy as we've seen what we're capable of doing with AI. But I really just want to know, what's Jeff Law's version of what AI is in damage prevention? Where do you see it today? Where do you see it maybe tomorrow? And do you think this is a good thing?
Oh, it's absolutely a good thing. There's no doubt about that. I think the thing that I think it amazes me as we get deeper and deeper into the AI world is just what it can be used for. The analytics, learning how you can predict not only where you should be focusing your resources from the standpoint of being efficient, but also ensuring that the work is done right. Some of the work that we've done as far as like a photo AI technology that we've implemented here at Earth, I mean, that stuff is just incredible. Where you can have the system analyze all the photos that have been taken on a locate site, determine whether they're geographically accurate. Make sure that there's actual paint on the ground. Are they in the right spot? And flag those to follow up and say, hey, you know what, this is not quite right. I want to make sure that excavator or that contractor in the field is going to be safe. Let's send someone out there to double check that particular locate because it's just not quite right, or something's just a little bit off. And again, that extra check could have saved a life that day. And that's something that's just amazing. That's someone that's been in the industry like you and I, as long as we have. We've seen some bad things happen, and those bad things happen because people have not necessarily done things exactly right. And here we're able to find a way or find a tool that will allow us to even make things better and safer in the industry.
Yeah, I think
Um,
over my Yeah, I was going to say over the course of time, I think really for us, I think we started to see this opportunity at really analyzing large amounts of data. and looking at trend analysis out of it. And we'd always done it in such a way where you could go in and say, look, there were 10 tickets that had damages. This is the same excavator on all 10. We got to be
Right.
cautious when that guy's out there. But to
Right.
ingest the amount of data that we're ingesting today, even in our move to Earth now, where we're touching hundreds of millions of tickets and the data associated with them, is really starting to expand that theory, because now you're looking at so much data and so much predictive data that it takes terabytes of data with amazing processors and algorithms to go in and sort through all of this stuff. So guys like me and you, I feel, are still somewhat critical in this industry, because we have to validate the trends that this thing identifies with what we believe to be as real. And I always
Right.
felt that that has such value that gets often overlooked by people that are maybe newer to the industry, right? I think there's something that I feel confident about when I'm looking at large data sets and being told this is what's being pulled out of the data, when it starts to align with what my gut feels. And I don't think there's a more qualified person on this planet than you to say what we're doing with AI. You know the insights of what we're doing with AI, but you also have all of this experience. Has anything kind of surprised you out of all that? Like I have a few cases, but I'm
Yeah,
just curious
I
what you
mean,
think.
absolutely. I think when you take, so you're comparing your hunch, right? We have experience, and that's hunches, and hey, my hunch says that if someone's doing directional boring, well, geez, that ticket has to be more risky than someone that's not doing directional boring. But when you take, hundreds and hundreds of different data elements and you combine them all together and say, well, it might not be just directional boring that makes that ticket dangerous. It could be the person that's doing it, the time of the week, the day that, the weather, all the different factors coming together that says, you know what, that particular ticket is of higher risk than, say, some other that you. And when you have that data, when you have that information, now it's a matter of what do you do with it, right? If you have all the data in the world, and that's not going to do anything if you don't do something about it. And that's the key, I think, is that we're working towards giving people the tools to do something about it, do something about, making a change, using that information to make people safe in the field. So that's the most important thing.
Two very interesting things come up as you talk about that I think. One is the unintended consequences of knowing risk exists, is the fact that in your example, I would say, I was blown away by the fact that directional boring has actually less risk associated, but more importantly, less damages associated with it. Not because the activity is less risky, but when that is occurring, people are more prepared. People participate greater. We see that because people that are going to take the time to white line, to do that type of work, to interact with the call centers, show more care. Thus, we see less damages. Again, something that I don't think an old timer in this industry like myself would have thought naturally that the data would show, right? But I
Right.
didn't take into account the second part of the conversation, is what happens when you react differently when you have that information. Because once you start reacting differently with that information, then the outcomes change and new things
Exactly.
become risky, right? So it's an evolution that's ongoing forever.
They call it intervention, right? Is as soon as you start to perform intervention into the things that you've learned, now your risk changes. You nailed it as far as the directional boring. I think directional boring tickets, everybody's got a higher sense of awareness that is a dangerous ticket. So let's take practices that make that less risky, and therefore now your directional boring ticket may be less risky because of that industry way of just handling those differently. Well, now what's your next thing? What's the next thing that's more risky? Um, and taking that information and being able to feed it and learn and have the models learn literally every day, all the time, with the data, the new data that's coming in, and have it adjust immediately. That's the power of the tools that we're now providing. It's just, you go back to the original question, how that has changed this industry and the excitement that kind of comes with it. It's just another tool in the tool belt that you can use to make things safer in the field.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And it's interesting because what's happening now is we're starting to get perspective on this information from all this data that we're collecting. And I think part of the natural conversation is, are we collecting enough data? Are we collecting correct data? Is there other data that could be more valuable to the damage prevention experience? So now as we're working with some of our clients, for example, at the call centers, we're doing enhanced positive response, collecting a lot
Right.
more data out in the field. That's now triggering more data to be part of our AI kind of experience that gives us even more insights. So I really love this, but it also leads me to kind of the next question is to say, look, we're going down, we're adding more data, all of this. Earth obviously is a leader in damage prevention. We have more access to data and tickets than most people in this space. The question becomes is, what do you do with that, right? And I know
Right.
sitting in your role as the general manager of damage prevention at Earth, you have to oversee one call activity, contract locator activity, utility owners, municipalities. You're really responsible for all that. But we also have other solutions in the family, you could say as well, that we never had earlier in our careers. I'm curious
Right.
to what some of your thoughts are, what that looks like, and we can kind of explore each of those. But I'm curious, just generally speaking, how you see damage prevention being beneficial outside of damage prevention.
Well, I'm going to take it a couple of different ways. One of the things that you brought up is, now that you have this information, how do you get that information out? How do you communicate that information? And you bring up the different tools that we have. Communicating that through the call centers, getting it out to the field, getting information into the hands of those that need it and are in need and are putting the shovels in the ground. Now you take that data and you now communicate it with other systems, right? So you're communicating with our land management system. So the person that's, handling these projects can understand what's out there, what's occurred. You have your sim product, the pipeline integrity side of things, where here we've got a dent in a pipe. What's occurred there for the last 15, 20 years, maybe. So let's have all that information, all that data, talk to each other. And that's one of the cool things that we're doing is bringing all those different products together and being able to show, hey, you know what? There's a cause and effect here. Here's the cause. Here's the symptom that you're coming up against. What caused it? Let's get some information that in the hands of those that are making those decisions, and go from there.
Nothing's better than when you're filming a podcast is when you have random
You
workers
seeing
going
something up
over.
there?
I love it. This is, as you can tell, Jeff's studio is probably under construction right now. We'll call it
Yes,
your
yeah, we
studio.
got
So
some painting going on here. So
I'm
yes,
sure there'll be
sorry.
some edits in this one. No, that's great. I like it. So as we kind of continue that conversation, I would say that it's been interesting to me to watch these new opportunities kind of get created under the Earth umbrella. You pointed out one I thought that was very interesting is that pipeline integrity, right? For the
Mhm.
history of Earth, since I've been associated with it for 30 years, basically we were telling you everything that could occur around the outside of your facility, right? If there's construction going on, anything that's being really done, we were able to tell you about. When we use pipeline integrity, for example, now we're telling you everything that's occurring inside the pipe, right? So theoretically, if you're using our pipeline integrity platform and you're also using our damage prevention platform, you're realistically saying, I'm looking at everything that's around and inside of my facility line and learning how to best protect it, how to best expand it, and how to best maintain that thing. So I'm curious as we go through and you see the future of what we're doing as a company. What I like to talk is where does the enterprise value really start to get introduced to our clients where they can say, look, Earth's been a great partner in damage prevention. let's learn about some of these other things, and more importantly, why that is, how that data plays. Why don't you kind of give us some insight on your thoughts of
Yeah.
this process?
Well, I mean, as I've learned more about the pipeline integrity portion of the industry, um, the thing that happens obviously when you have an anomaly, you're inspecting your pipe. It's a FEMSA regulation that you have to do that, and you come across something, and then literally 5 feet later, you come across something else. Um, if you know about both of those situations at the same time you're doing that in that one run, great, you repair both of them at the same time. Normally, that doesn't happen though. Normally, you go out there, you find one thing, you're like, okay, let's keep an eye on that, or let's repair that, and then you go and do another inspection, and literally 5 feet away was another anomaly. And had you known about the two, you could have maybe taken and done one dig and handled it all at one time. So, one of the best ways to stay safe is to minimize the amount of digging that you have to do if that's necessary, right? So let the tools that we have will not only allow for an efficient situation where you're finding those anomalies that are close to each other and performing one dig, but also then handling that workflow all electronically and being able to submit that one single dig, and be able to handle it in one fell swoop.
Yeah, man, when we started putting these pieces together and we started talking collectively as a group inside the company, and you started to see, well, wait a second, I can actually start to look at when there's repair because of the size of the markings or dents inside the pipe. I can now
Mhm.
coordinate that when somebody else is doing activities. And if there happens to be an opportunity where they're opening up the patch of land that's near my facility and I need to do a repair, I can leverage that opportunity to get that work done, reduce my cost, but also enhance my activity for safety because now I'm doing it in a much more set area as my workers are working in conjunction with somebody else. And more importantly, not exposing themselves to risk twice.
Right.
We never had that ability before in damage prevention because all
No.
we knew was what's outside, which was awesome.
Right.
But now that we also can look inside, I keep thinking, wow, that's amazing. And to me, the conversation goes, what data does damage prevention have that could have been valuable for protecting what's running on the inside of the pipe? And so
Mhm.
what's fun for us is these are questions I don't think have been asked before, right? And so now we're getting to work with lots of stakeholders that are seeing these opportunities and giving us feedback. I think it's what's great at Earth is we have really great clients that participate, give us great feedback. And so we're learning along with them right now, which I love because whenever I see that occur, I go, that's the sign of a good organization is that you're moving towards the goal line with your partners together. So, as we start to kind of navigate this path and it's becoming more and more complex and we're looking at this, there's one section of people in the damage prevention industry that we've really never had, I think, a significant relationship with. And to me, that's the excavator, or maybe in our language,
The
the
contractor in the field.
but also
Mhm.
known as the contractor, right? I'm curious at what your thoughts about how they participate, and then knowing what we know about our upcoming opportunities, where you see their participation is in this whole scale, and then where you see potentially our platform that caters directly to contractors, where you see that in the future of damage prevention.
So yeah, so the obviously the contractor slash excavator in the field is one area that we haven't had a lot of attention that has been given to them over the course of my career in the 811 industry. They obviously use our Exactix platform to input dig requests and things in that nature. Um, but their needs are much different than, say, someone that receives the ticket coming out of the call center. They're obviously submitting that work in, and there's always been this feeling that one side doesn't know what the other is doing, and what we're finding is that the needs of that contractor in the field are much different than those needs of someone that's receiving the data on the other end. And we've got some really exciting things that we're looking at as far as tools that a contractor can use to then hopefully make their work and their lives a lot more efficient and simple, which will have an effect downstream. Um, you hear about uh, you know contractors that are submitting all their tickets on Monday, as an example. Monday morning, it just, all right, let's start feeding our 811 tickets because that's what we have to do. And I think a lot of times that's done just because the information that excavator or contractor has is not complete. They may not even realize that other parts of their organization already has that job complete, or there's other things that might be going on. And having a tool that allows them the ability to see and again have that information, not only on the input side or submission side, but also on the status of the locate in the field, and having the ability, the positive response that the utilities are providing to the call center, and having that information at their hands to where they may be able to then get started on a job much sooner because all the utilities might have already been able to respond on that ticket. And that allows them to start a job potentially hours, if not days ahead of time.
It's interesting too in that conversation. What we've seen from our initial research is we're seeing that people that participate, these excavators that participate, specifically contractors who may not be doing direct work for utilities, but true pure contractors, that when they participate in given a tool that allows them to organize their data, they actually participate more. They get the information from the field faster. They typically submit less update tickets, which I think you and I both know anything
Right.
you can do to reduce the amount of updates coming in is a win. And what happens is because of that reduction, we're actually seeing a reduction in damages around those tickets as well. So as we start to talk about the mission of the CGA and the 50 and 5 and all of that, I think you and I share similar feelings that we feel you're going to have to use tech and a lot of that to solve some of these options. One group that we never really thought was we could apply great technology to the contractor slash excavator market, allow them to be more efficient, and that might just very well reduce some of the stress on the notification center in this process.
Sure.
So I'm super excited about as we launch these new tools that we're going to get a double benefit. We're providing a great tool set for these excavating community and get them more in the process, but also the benefit of seeing less tickets submitted, and I would argue more accurate tickets created with better tools at the beginning, especially if you're using those in an exacting state, as I like to throw my sales pitch in as I wear my Earth shirt. But I would
Yeah.
suggest that our tools will be, I think, applicable across any one call center as well as they need to be on release. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that you battle against is the biggest thing that you battle against is complacency, right? Whether it be on the excavator or contractor side or on the locating side. That's one of the things that I think if you can really have a focused effort and making sure that the information that's passed along is valid and accurate for the work that's actually being done. I mean, that to me is another way of battling against that complacency that could set in.
yeah, I think one thing that I'm confident in, if you participate in the process and you care, and then you become competent through good training, we're going to be
Mhm.
able to help reduce those damages, right? And I think that is starting to hit, I think, that the very core of who we are at Earth Solutions. We're looking at how do we use great data to make your job safer? How do we train you on that information, right? Because that's a critically, I think it's something that harkens back to what you were saying earlier. Having the data without doing action doesn't make it any better. You actually have to apply some of this data to what you're doing and do some actions to see some reactions out of it. I think training's a great spot to talk about as well. And so, as we kind of sum all of this up, I'm curious, where do you see damage prevention in 10 years from now? Do you see robots doing everything, or what's your real life
Yeah.
kind of expectation of that?
Well, I love Earth's next release when it comes out in 5-10 years, where it actually puts paint on the ground. That's going to be fun, kind of like the Jetsons, I guess, mentality. But no, I mean, I think you're hitting it on the head. Again, it goes back to putting all the pieces in place making sure that if you can reduce the number of digs that are necessary through pipeline integrity, that's another way. Communicating with everybody that's involved. I'm a huge over communicator, as you well know, Jay. You always hear things from me all the time. But I think that having all the information and being able to uh, communicate that out to the field, provide those guys in the field with all the tools that they can, to where you have even things that where a shovel goes in the ground and your alarms go off of some kind, that says, hey, you're about to hit something, let's stop, let's make sure that we're safe. I think the technology that we are embarking on is pretty incredible. You go from when we first started, Jay, where we're developing against a printer in the field that dot matrix printers, and it was success when we got tickets over email. Wow, that's great. And hey, you know what? Geez, 10 years ago, we just finally eliminated fax machines, which I'm sure a lot of the folks that listen to this podcast probably don't even know what a fax machine is. Um, so now the technology is moving so fast, and you look at, just your cell phone, what it was 10 years ago is nowhere near what it is today. So that the technology that we have in our hands, and all the tools that we have in our hands are growing at an exponential rate. It's exciting. It's fun. And I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of sum this all up. I think our paths were very different, but also very similar, right? But the one thing I think we both shared was a passion for really trying to do good in this industry, right? And when we started, you're right. The old thing was I'd pull out an ROI calculator to show you why it was cheaper to buy my software than it was to buy print cartridges, right? And that kind of stuff. And the biggest
Yep.
complaint of my software was that there was no bell when a ticket came in. And so the time we took to figure out how to record that bell sound so we could trigger it when a ticket came in, that release was one of the best releases we ever did at Irth. Was we just emulated a bell sound so it sounded like an old printer. The one thing I think
Yeah.
it
Well,
teaches
we
us,
kind of put
though,
Dunder Mifflin out of business,
of the paper
unfortunately. But
business, that's right. That's what we do. We ruined the office. Well, I tell you, it's been a pleasure getting to know you both professionally and personally. I'm glad you're on the Earth team now. I can't believe you and I are both sitting here wearing the Earth shirts. But I do think both of us always envisioned something greater than damage prevention, that this industry had value outside of the very small walls that were originally set when we were first starting. And I'm so happy today to be part of the company that's really trying to show value of what we do far outside of just that damage prevention area. And I think for somebody whose goal and purpose at the end at our company is to make sure damage prevention is rock solid, I love your approach of you're saying, let's look outside and really figure out how we make our clients' life better. So I think that's going to serve Earth really well for the upcoming years. I do think it also introduces a lot of opportunity as we learn more and more about what other areas of our clients do in their business. And we have products now that offer solutions there. But more importantly, and the most important question is, what's next for Jeff Law? Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Well, hopefully retired by in 10 years, right? But you never know, right? I don't know. It's hard to. Boy, that's a great question. What do I see? I think it's a weird industry in the sense that that we just stick around forever, right? I mean, Jay, you and I have been in this industry for nearly 30 years, so um, it's hard to think of doing anything outside of it. It's what we know. Um, so as far as me personally, I see myself connected to the industry somehow, some way for that time until I decide that golf is more important than maybe working, I guess. I don't know. Well, that's a great question. I can't even answer it at this point.
Well, I will tell you, the day you hang them up, I've probably already hanged them up. I think there'll probably be a handful of people who are pretty happy that we finally hung them up. but I also think it's going to be a great loss for the industry because the knowledge that you've had and the leadership you've shown this industry for your career has been impressive, to say the least. It was impressive enough that always as a competitor, I looked across and I said, man, that guy would be fun to work with. So I guess to sum all this up, nothing makes me happier than sitting on the other side of a camera wearing the same shirt as you are. I appreciate everything
Absolutely.
you've done in your career, and I really hope that you find that dream of retiring, going to the golf course of your dreams, and waving goodbye to this industry because you've left it in a much better place than before you got here.
Absolutely, and I do want to say thank you to you as well for not only inviting me on this podcast, but also inspiring me to rejuvenate my career after leaving Korterra. So it's been a fun ride with you, and really appreciate everything that you've done. And I'm excited with what the next chapter that we get to do together. So.
Well, everybody, to learn more about what Jeff's doing at Irth Solutions, please go to our website, irth.com. Also, stay tuned for our next podcast where we're going to have all of our GMs on a roundtable talking about what enterprise value and AI have in common and how Irth Solutions is really starting to broaden the value of damage prevention. So thanks a lot for listening in. Please join us again. I'm your host, Jason Adams. Thank you.